Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel. This is Parashat Va'etchanan, the Plea, Deuteronomy 3:23 to 7:11. This one's called One Love. So this is an interesting time, isn't it? We're currently in the 9 days of mourning, from the 1st of Av until the 9th of Av. Tonight is that 9th day, and this is when Israel has sinned, suffered, and lost. We know what it's all about. So tonight, we fast tonight and tomorrow. It's 25 hours of fasting, mourning, lamenting. 2 days after the fast, meaning it begins on Wednesday night, so we're talking about Friday night, okay? Then Shabbat begins. And this is a very special and necessary Shabbat called Shabbat Nachamu. We read from Isaiah 40, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Be comforted, my people. Twice. This is literally the Shabbat of comfort and literally translates to comforting rest. Now, it so happens that this week's Parsha is Parashat Va'etchanan, the Plea. This is the plea of Moses to see the land of Israel. No more. Just let me in just so I could see it. Put me in as a wild animal. I don't care. He didn't need to lead anymore. He just wanted to see it. Now consider the timing of everything. Consider the state of the world. Consider how close everything is right now. And consider how much quicker things are going to move. Always be on the ready. Verse 26, but the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he did not listen to me. And the Lord said to me, it is enough for you. Speak to me no more regarding this matter. As we thoroughly discussed a few weeks ago, or was it last month, I can't even remember, that Moses was never meant to lead the children of Israel into the land of Israel. This was not his job. His job, his specific role, was to lead them out of Egypt. His job was to receive the Torah. His job was to impart the Torah to the people. His job was to prepare them for things to come. This was Moses' job. Each and every one of us has a job. Even the greatest of us have a specific job to do. There's not one person that does everything, because that would defeat everything. So as we discussed last year and many other times, if Moses was to enter into the land of Israel, the whole world would have ended, as well as the children of Israel. Okay, he would have gone straight to Temple Mount, burning up any of God's enemies along the way, and the third temple would have from the heavens, and that was the end of it. Israel weren't ready for that to happen. So when God revealed this to Moses, what would happen if he would have entered? That's when he finally accepted his fate. I cannot enter. I get it now. And I won't ask again, because he didn't want the people to die. That is the moment that Moses relented. And that would be the final moment that he literally gave his life for the children of Israel, for God's children. He died for them outside of the land. Now, to strengthen this point, if you consider where he was standing, think about this. When God told him to get a nice view from the top of the mountain, was to be within the borders of the land of Israel. Technically speaking, he was specifically more in the borders of the tribe of Gad, because remember, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh were on the east side of the Jordan. Moses was standing right over there, overlooking the borders. So was he in Israel or was he not in Israel? What's going on here? Technically, he was in the land that God was to give the children of Israel. So really, what is going on here? What was the purpose of the land of Israel ultimately? Everything has a purpose. Every mitzvah that we do, it's not about the mitzvah. It's about doing the mitzvah properly, but it's about so much more what's behind it. Again, we always go back to the korbanot because it's something that on the surface level, especially to the outside world, it makes absolutely no sense. But when you study the korbanot and how it is exactly linked directly between us and God, it all makes sense. And it's like, wow, so if I do this tiny little thing here, and if I focus on a detail there, it shakes the heavens? Yes. So, what is the purpose of the land of Israel? Ultimately, in the big picture, it is to build the temple and to unite Ze'ir Anpin with Malchut, okay? Ze'ir Anpin with Malchut. Now, Moses was likened to Ze'ir Anpin, the sun, the great luminary, right? But Malchut, which is female, was not ready to receive because it has to come from here and there. Malchut is a female. Was not ready to receive. She was not yet set up. The land had to be cleansed, and the inhabited, according to to God's word, they had to be wiped out. They were an abomination. And the children of Israel had to do this themselves. They had to go to work. Each and every man had to go to war. If you didn't work the ground, you would not eat. If you didn't fend for yourselves, you would surely perish. And of course, this should go without saying, Deuteronomy 11:13, and it will be, if you hearken to my commandments that I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, I will give the rain of your land in its time, the early rain and the latter rain. As we mentioned, this is the resurrection of the dead. And you will gather in your grain, your wine, and your oil, and I will give grass in your field for your livestock, and you will eat and you will be sated. All this in addition to the simultaneous cleansing and inhabiting of the land. Meaning Ze'ir Anpin and Malchut combine. Malchut is just darkness on its own. When it is connected to Ze'ir Anpin is likened to the moon. Now in David's day, his entire life was dedicated to cleansing Malchut in order to unite with Ze'ir Anpin, meaning from the bottom up. You have to prepare what's on the ground so the upper part could come to the lower part. This is what Moses was doing. He was conditioning them. David came very, very close. And David did indeed prepare the ground for the temple to be built. But like Moses, he was denied the completion, if you will, of the mission that he was set to begin, that he himself begun, that they themselves begun. Or so it seems. Because Moses Ze'ir Anpin and the seed of David's Malchut will be back in the end of days to join forces and finally combine, and they will become one, bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth while elevating earth to heaven. Now, you must understand, going into Tisha B'Av right now, which is going to be in just a few short hours, just like there was no way that Moses could have entered into Israel at the time, and just like there was no way that David could have built the temple at the time, although there was no one more worthy of fulfilling these two tasks than these two men, no one. There was no way that both the first and second temples could have not been destroyed. This is, you could find it all throughout the 5 books. This was going to happen. It was destined to happen. If Moses would have entered, he would have built what we would know, or come to know soon, God willing, as the third temple. There would be no need for a first or second temple. But again, it's out of order. And it would not have been destroyed. And the same goes for David. It's precisely because they were worthy and were the right men for the job that they had to be taken out of the equation. And why? This is for the sake of everyone else. Now, why do you think God does these sorts of things? Why would God exile his people? Why? Because they need to be conditioned. The tikkun needs to be made, because this way he can bring them back. This is the essence of tshuva. You don't only say it, you have to live it. It has to become you. It has to be who you are. Why would God allow his temples to be destroyed? Because this way they can be rebuilt properly by everyone. Everyone gets a chance. Everyone gets a hand in it. But not by brick, stone, wood, and gold, although that absolutely will come into play. But by building ourselves up so that we can be around for the building of the third temple. Now, again, I just want to just touch on this briefly. This book, The Secrets of the Future Temple, this was translated by Rabbi Avraham Greenbaum. Okay, this work is the work of the Ramchal. Okay, so this about the third temple. We're going to touch on this at the end of the study, so just stay tuned. But again, it's very relevant now to Tisha B'Av. So you see, this takes tremendous amounts of faith to continue, even though we see all these tragedies and travesties happen to our people, especially on this day. And where faith is even lacking, that's where love comes in. Who was God's beloved? It was Abraham. Isaiah 41, verse 8, "But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, who loved me." Now, we have to read the Hebrew, okay? "V'ata Yisrael avdi Yaakov asher bacharticha, zera Avraham ohavi." We're going to discuss ohavi. Ohavi actually has three meanings. The first, Abraham who loves me. Two, Abraham who is loved by me. And three, Abraham who causes others to love me. Yeah. What was the culmination of this love? This is from the book of Jasher. We've studied this plenty of times. "And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice, and he wept when Isaac spake these words, and Abraham's tears gushed down upon the face of his son Isaac, and Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, Hasten thou, O my father, and do with me the will of the Lord our God, as he has commanded thee." They were both, right? They were both in one mind over there. "And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced in this thing which the Lord had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly, whilst the heart rejoiced." You understand how you can separate yourself from your personal feelings and go with the love of God? It transcends any kind of feeling, I feel like I love God. No, they were. Abraham gave his son, his firstborn son, whom he loved more than anything else in the world. And God stopped it from happening, of course. Nevertheless, they were both prepared. They were ready to go. The eye wept bitterly whilst the heart rejoiced. He didn't receive a reason for doing this impossible task, but he did it with all his heart nonetheless. God didn't say, "Hey, this is the reason why I want you to sacrifice your son to me." No, he says, "Go do this." Abraham's like, "Yeah, fine." I mean, well, again, more than just fine. He rose up, jumped up like a tiger, like a lion in the morning. He's like, "I'm going to go do this." Weeping bitterly, but he rejoiced. Now, Moses wanted nothing more than to enter into the land. He basically saw it. He understood it, but he wanted to witness it himself. Now, we've established that it's so much more than that, obviously. So check this out. "But the way the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he did not listen to me, and the Lord said to me, It is enough for you. Speak to me no more regarding this matter. Go up to the top of the hill, and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and see with your eyes, for you shall not cross this Jordan. Ki lo ta'avor, la'avor, right, of Ivri, et hayarden hazeh. Now, what does this mean? For you shall not pass over this Jordan. Here's a wonderful remez, a hint as to what God showed Moses. Check this out. The word Yarden has a numerical value of 264. The word Seder, order, has the numerical value of 264. Seder, as in Leil HaSeder, what you might know as the night of Passover, is actually called the night of order, right? We also discussed this in the video, the night of order. This was one of the greatest events in the history of the world thus far, as it's mentioned, I believe, 50 times in the Torah, 50. Zecher liyetziat Mitzrayim, remembering the exodus from Egypt. So what is God not only telling Moses here, but showing him as well? Go up to the top of the hill and lift up your eyes, westward and northward and southward and eastward, and see with your own eyes, for you shall not pass this order. He showed him the events of things to come. He said, you can't do this. If you do this, all my plans are messed up. Sorry. I'll let you mess them up, but it's up to you. You want to mess them up? Obviously, you don't want to mess them up, so he did not. God showed Moses the end of time. the end of days when he himself would return. Oh yeah. But now is not that time, because there is an order to things. God showed him that the sun, which was Moses, is about to set. And why? Israel would then be led by the moon, which is Joshua. And as we know, the only way for the moon to shine is when it receives its light from the sun after it sets. This is the order to things. And the moon cannot shine while the sun is still in the sky. The other matter regarding the Levanon from verse 25. Pray let me cross over, Moses says, and see the good land that is on the other side of the Jordan, this good mountain and the Lebanon. Now, we discussed, I think, in last year's teachings, or plenty of times before, the Levanon is the white, the Lavan, and that is the temple. He saw the heavenly temple come down to earth. He saw the Lavan, the pure, the white, the wool, right? But something else I learned this year, Levanon, it has 4 letters, right? Lamed Bet Nun Yud. Nun. Lavnan. It doesn't have a Yud in there. Okay? So it's split dafka into 2 words, Lev and Nun. Lev is heart, and Nun, which is Nun, it's 50, numerical value of 50. The heart, as we know in Judaism, is the wisdom, the chokhmah that emanates from the mind. Chokhmah right there. And the 50, the Nun, represents the 50 gates of Binah, understanding. He showed him this. That's what he showed him, okay? Now, and what is the outcome of wisdom and knowledge, and understanding on high? It's knowledge, right here. Chokhmah, Binah, Vadat. And as we discussed plenty of times, this was Moses' very, very sacred spot. So, what is knowledge? What is knowing, biblically speaking? It is the most intimate connection that there is. In fact, the spiritual root of Da'at is one. Adam knew his wife, and they made babies, right? And so when we are commanded to love our God right here in the Parsha, what does that even mean? I mean, God has been dropping hints all along the way, but only those who are his will actually be able to pick it up. For example, Exodus 31. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, and you speak to the children of Israel and say, only keep my Sabbaths, for it is a sign between me and you for all your generations to know. Lada'at ki ani Hashem mekadishchem. I am the Lord who makes you holy. This is how you know. Now again, it's not only the Shabbatot, it's part of it. What Shabbat do we have coming up now? What's happening this weekend? Shabbat Nachamu, the comforting rest, right? From our Parsha, chapter 435, you have been shown in order to know that the Lord, he is God, there is none else besides him. Ata hereta ladat ki Adonai hu Elohim, en od milvado. If you won't see that Hashem is God and there is none besides him, you are lost, I tell you now. If you don't see or can't see, sorry, the first one is if you won't see, but if you don't see or if you can't see, there still might be some hope for you. To know God, truly to know God, is to love God. And this is not something that happens at first sight. Or are we forgetting that we have seen no image of him in the smoke and in the fire, as he repeatedly said so? So, if to know God means to love God, what does it mean to love? Not the false Hollywood idea of love that they've been trying to sell you since who knows, right? And this is what they're trying to indoctrinate the world with, or have been. And look, how's that working out for everybody, huh? I'm not talking about lust. I'm talking about basic desires. I love steak, absolutely, until I'm done eating it, and then I don't love it anymore. I kind of like it, it's okay, until I really love it again. Oh, you get it, okay. There's only one way you love, and how is that? We're going to see. Psalm 67, this is a very, very high psalm for channeling the ear of the Almighty, okay? If you read it in the shape of a menorah, this is also how it's written, it opens up very special gates. So we're just going to read the first 3 verses. For the conductor on Negiot, a psalm, a song, God will be gracious to us and bless us. He will cause his countenance to shine with us forever. That your way should be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. Ladat ba'aretz darkecha, bechol goyim yeshuatecha. Then, yoducha amim Elohim, yoducha amim kulam. That's right. Yea, all of them. This is the recognition of God's sovereignty and understanding where he is and where we are in relation to him. This is how David was able to elevate himself to the level of the patriarchs. As the generations go, continue, you understand, it's very hard to get to these levels again, especially once you fill in the ushpizin, right? There cannot be another Aaron, there cannot be another Moses, there cannot be another Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, there cannot be another Joseph. David's like, I want to be where they're at. And because of all the sacrifices that David made, he and the 3 patriarchs became the 4 pillars. And so even before we pray, Shmoneh Esrei, we pray in the name of God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we say, Hashem Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Agita Yilatecha, before the Shmoneh Esrei, which is may God open my lips and my mouth utter your praises. Right? Before Shmoneh Esrei. In other words, David is right there and the 3 patriarchs are there. Okay, they're together. Anyway. And this all started when he did tshuva, basically. He truly fulfilled the commandment of, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your means. So, how do we love God? Let's look at our people. Abraham gave his son. Moses gave up on establishing the kingdom and thereby his life. David gave up every fiber of his being. He completely surrendered his life afterwards. And he was not on Moses' level. He was a struggling individual. Now, if they could do all that, how can we possibly do anything close? Are we expected to? The answer is no, but also yes. And there's a reason I'm starting with the no. No, as far as their tests and their particular burdens were tailored to them. And what they did, no one else could have or would have done. And yes, as far as we need to be working towards higher levels all the time, to the best of our ability within the framework and tools that we have been given. That's what they did. They maximized their potential. Even a fall is for the sake of getting up. David actually became better because of that. And so, listen up, or rather, hear. O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Now this is our jam, right? This is what we say. But what are we even saying? Let's break it down, because we need to know. Get it? What are we to hear, O Israel? Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Okay, so we have 3 mentions of God in this verse. Let's break it down to try and see if we can actually do this. The first Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, it signifies what? Chesed, grace, kindness, loving kindness. The second is Elokeinu, right? And as we know that this is the name, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim vet haaretz. So Elokim is the judgment, right? So this is the judgment had to create the universe. This is din, gvura, judgment. And the third is the second time that we see the Yud Kei Vav Kei afterwards. And this signifies mercy, rachamim. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And these 3, kindness, judgment, and mercy, are all pulled together from one single God, our God, who created all things and is the source of all things. And although there seems to be conflicts within, even in this verse, opposites such as chesed and gvura, they all emanate from the same creator, as they are all necessary components for the world to actually exist. Now, this is apparent in the Torah, as we can not only see the actions themselves, but God even says so within the same verses. Isaiah 45, 6 and 7, in order that they know from the shining of the sun, Eman yed'u mimizrach shemesh, shining of the sun, and from the west, that there is no one besides me. I am the Lord and there is no other. Verse 7, who forms light and creates darkness? Who makes peace and creates evil? I am the Lord who makes all these. Again, there are many different, how should we say, different religions who believe that there are forces out there who hate God. They don't hate God. They actually love God. We've discussed this. Even Satan himself, the big bad. Do you think he actually takes pleasure in the things that he does? No. He takes pleasure in serving his master because he knows who God is. That is his job. And you're making his job so easy on him. We all are. Anyway, God creates all these things, which means that everything that is good in the world, puppies, ice cream, beer, guns, American muscle cars, also everything that is bad in this world, techno music, face masks, the DMV, come on, people who kick puppies, and so on. I jest, but not really. Our God, the creator of all things, deals with all his creation, with loving kindness and with mercy, and of course with judgment when it calls for it. Is nature to be judged? No, because nature does exactly what nature is told to do, each and every element in nature. Nature listens to God. We're the only ones with free will, and we don't do such a good job. Why is the judgment necessary? In order to correct that which has been distorted. There is no better example of this than sexual immorality. Now, believe me, if I had, here's a personal moment, if I had any idea of the damage that I was causing, I would have lived a very, very different life. But many times, many people have an idea and they still continue to live their lives. And this is not only for the Jews, this is for all of the world. This was from the time Adam and Eve, man and woman. This was the reason the flood was brought about the earth. Sexual immorality was running rampant. This is the reason the flood will come again, only this time it's not going to be water, it's fire. The concept of intimacy between husband and wife under the sanctity of marriage has gotten so corrupt that the word distorted doesn't even cut it. Perverse, maybe, Anyway, a rectification must be made. It has to be made. And this rectification, like all rectifications, although they are judgments, they are within the confines of mercy. Those are rectifications, it's not the same punishment. That's a whole other topic, by the way. So mercy and punishments, or corrections and punishments. Shema Yisrael, what are we called to hear? Or rather, what are we called to say? Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Now, we've discussed this before, but here it is again. We are called to be a witness to elements of mercy, judgment, and truth, which are also the core of who we are and why we are. Abraham is mercy, Isaac is judgment, Jacob is truth, right? Here we go. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How do we get mercy, judgment, and truth? Micah 7:20, you shall give the truth to Jacob and the loving kindness to Abraham, which you swore to our forefathers from days of yore. Mimei kedim, days of old. So, who could possibly be a better witness than Israel for the loving kindness of God? I mean, look at what he did for us. We can't even begin to comprehend, but it's our obligation to try. He had mercy on us and elevated us to the highest of heights. And I don't only speak of the generation of the wilderness. I speak of you as well. You know what we say when we get called up to the Torah? Okay, you get an aliyah to the Torah on Shabbat or on Monday and Thursday. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. We say, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Lord our God, creator of the universe. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim venatan lanu et torato. Who chose us from all the peoples and gave us his Torah. That's mercy. He separated us from wherever the rest of the nations are going. You don't want to head there, right? God said, do not be like them. As the reader keeps reading the letters and the words in Hebrew, obviously, of which God spoke the universe into existence, that is judgment right there. After which, the person reading silently with him says the final blessing once he finishes this part. It says, Asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. And we say, Baruch atah Hashem noten Torah, which gave us the Torah, the doctrine of truth, and eternal life has planted within us, which means all those who have Torah, have truth, and have potential for eternal life is planted in you. You got to water it. Blessed are you, my Lord, giver of the Torah. Mercy, judgment, and truth within each aliyah. It's in everything we do, because that is the essence of our God, and because our name is Israel. For the sake of my servant Jacob and Israel, my chosen one, and I called to you by your name. I surnamed you, yet you have not known me. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Besides me, there is no God. I will strengthen you, although you have not known me. And just like we can testify to the unfathomable kindness and mercy of the Creator, we can also attest to his judgments, can we not? No other people have been more blessed than Israel, and no other people have suffered more than Israel. Guess what? We say amen to both. And just so you know, the word amen, amen, whatever, do you even know what you're saying? Do you even know what it stands for? Do you know what it means? Or, yeah, it means right on, great. What does it mean, though? Mike knows what I'm talking about because he had the heart to ask. Love you, buddy. Amen. Aleph, Mem, Nun. Aleph stands for El, God. Mem stands for Melech, King. Nun stands for Ne'eman, faithful. My faithful God and King. Amen. Amen. Let's learn something every day, huh? Isaiah 43:7. Everyone that is called by my name, and whom I created for my glory, I formed him. Yea, I made him. To bring out a blind people who have eyes, and a deaf people who have ears. Were all the nations gathered together and kingdoms assembled, who of them would tell this, or let us know of the first events? Let them present their witnesses, and they shall be deemed just. And let them hear and say, Emet, true. You, talking to Israel, as kids, you are my witnesses, says the Lord, and my servant whom I chose, in order that you know and believe me, and understand that I am he, Before me no God was formed, and after me none shall be. I am the Lord, and besides me there is no Savior. Like I said, you think that someone comes to save you or has saved you? Blasphemy. I told, and I saved, and I made heard, and there was no stranger. And a stranger does not mean sojourner or ger. It means zar, someone who does not belong among you, and you are my witnesses, says the Lord, and I am God. Very, 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 very clear. This is why the letter Ayin in the Shema, you'll see it in all the Sidurim, they should have it in Shema Yisrael. The letter Ayin is called Ayin Rabati. Rabbah, right? Rav, Rov, means great, okay? Erev Rav, a great multitude. Rabati, large, dominant, okay? The Ayin is Ayin Rabati at the end of the first word. And at the end of the verse, Echad, the Daled, which is the last letter of the last word of Echad, is also Rabati. So you have Shema and Echad, and together the Rabati, the Ayin and the Daled, they spell what? Ed, witness. And what do witnesses do if not testify? Each and every one of us, assuming you are Israel, is going to testify before God, before the heavenly courts, before all the souls of Israel, before all the nations, that God is one and his name is one. And don't forget, or as he said in Isaiah 40, now to whom will you compare me, that I should be equal, says the Holy One. Ask yourselves, who are you comparing to God? Who are you comparing God to? Go ahead, say it. I know what you're thinking. That's idolatry. Even at our lowest point, though we lusted after earthly things and worshipped false idols, we never, ever even dared think to compare anything or anyone to God. We knew what we were doing was wrong. And so if you're stuck at that point, stay tuned. And because of this knowledge that Israel has of God, that we, not the rest of the nations, but we are called to a higher standard, where both kindness and judgment, they're on the same level, which is precisely why we were called to, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life source, and with all your means. Actually, it says with all your hearts. We'll talk about that. Let's translate this properly. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elohecha. Great. Love the Lord your God. Straight up. Bechol levavcha. What does this mean? Levavcha. With all your heart. Especially since it's not written in a singular tense. Not levavchem, not you. He's speaking to the individual. God is speaking to you and you and you and you and you, right? Singular tense to an individual is libecha, bekol libcha. But there's an extra bet in here, which gives us levavcha, hinting towards two hearts. Bet is the numerical value of 2. So, what it actually says is, you shall love the Lord your God with both your hearts, with all of both your hearts. Now you might think that it's hard enough to love God with just one heart. Now I got to do it with 2. Well, we always had 2 hearts. Or haven't you been paying attention? Let's turn to the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, 1539. Check this out. And how relevant is this? Because this is the third part of the Shema. This shall be fringes for you, and when you see it, you will remember all the commandments of the Lord to perform them, and you shall not wander after your hearts and after your eyes, after which you are going astray. Okay. Lo tatu achei levavchem. Now, come on, man. What are these two hearts? All right. This last verse should give us a pretty solid understanding to know the answer. Use your wisdom, huh? Okay. What causes you to wonder? Your inclination, perhaps, right? As we discussed last week, we have two, and they are both equally as strong and perfectly matched. We have Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Ra. And you are to love the Lord your God with both your good inclination and with your bad inclination. Both your hearts, all your hearts. So, last week we discussed why we have them both and the reason they are equal. And again, just like we can see the perfect balance of all things in God's creation, light and dark and so on. Also, we discussed plenty of times before, if there was no challenge, we would not grow. The whole purpose is for there to be a challenge, but a challenge that you can overcome. So whatever you're given, you know that that was given to you in order for you to overcome. So if you don't overcome, it's not that God gave you something that was too big for you. Now, we're going to understand how to love our God with our evil inclination. This is pretty cool right now. We're about to stick it to the other side. It's quite simple, actually, to understand in theory, that is. It's much more difficult to put it into practice, like all things. Nevertheless, that's why God made it this way. So, do we recall why we were put on this earth? Ultimately, not what each and every person's task is. I don't know. You don't know. But why were we put here? What's the purpose of all of this? It's to rectify that which has been broken. That which has become distorted, and yes, even that which has become perverse. Correct. From the worst things possible, there's also a tikkun. Of course, God can do all things. Here, it's done. You're welcome, huh? No. And his wisdom is beyond anything that we can hope to fathom. And yet, this is the method he chose. This is God's method that he chose to rectify the world through us. So that means you are important. And so how can we fight the darkness if we don't know what darkness is? How can we rectify that which has been broken if we have not been broken and crushed ourselves? How can we straighten out that which has become distorted if we ourselves have not gone astray? And how can we ever hope to correct that which has been perverted if we ourselves have not fallen so far away? Guilty. Everything that we go through, every last thing. Shema Yisrael right now, Hero Israel. Everything that you go through is for the benefit of Tikkun Olam. And it's entirely in your hands. How you choose to use this opportunity. Do you understand how much power you have? This is our day-to-day. We've talked about this so much. This is the most practical and most basic thing that everyone is capable of doing. But Israel, what is our job? While the nations are obligated to work on themselves, Israel, who in addition to the obligation to work on themselves, again, these are the 7 Noahide laws. These are laws of morality. In addition to keeping the Torah, Israel, and all of its commandments, in addition to being responsible for all our brothers, we, Israel, are obligated to bring the light to the rest of the world, to the darkness of the nations. And how would we possibly know what the darkness of the nations is if we would not have been exiled to them and lived among them? Our very selves. This time is almost upon us. Zephaniah 3. Therefore, wait for me. says the Lord, for the day that I will rise up to meet you. For it is my judgment to assemble nations, to gather kings, to pour out my fury upon them, yea, all the kindling of my wrath. For with the fire of my jealousy, all the earth shall be consumed. For then I will convert the peoples to a pure language, that all of them call in the name of the Lord, to worship him of one accord. Wow. In other words, God will use his people to turn the ways of lies to that of truth, i.e. Torah emet. And oh yeah, that's exactly why Israel were dispersed among the nations. Because the first time that it was the 10 tribes who were kidnapped by the Assyrians and assimilated among the nations, and the second time was the destruction of the second temple, when the Jews were dispersed to go get their brothers back. You see, during these difficult days right now, as well as over the centuries, we've been making a tikkun for the namesake of God in the world first and foremost. It's all about, that's always your number one reason, should be your number one reason for everything, is loving God, right? Every time the Jews got smacked, and got smacked a lot, but every time that happened, there was a massive tikkun that was happening in the heavens. It looks like hell on earth, but you have no idea what's happening over there. It is, the last big smack being the Holocaust, okay? As a result of the Holocaust, again, you can't excuse it, but try and understand what a tikkun means. A tikkun means that this is something that your neshama has to go through, or a piece of your neshama that needs that rectification for the sake of perfection. So as a result of that, we had the state of Israel has been established, and Jews were now able to return to their land after 2,000 years of exile. My grandparents were telling me, okay, Mashiach is coming any day now. And also, since the United States played an instrumental role in not only freeing the camps and harboring the Jews in the States right now, but also voted to establish the state of Israel in the United Nothing, that they received God's favor and shortly after became the world's most powerful nation. But now, as anti-Semitism is on the rise in waves not seen since Nazi Germany, see what happens to America and the rest of the world when it turns on its Jews, okay? Because now we are in Israel. Things are going to be slightly different now. So how do we know this is a tikkun for God's name's sake? We know this because God said so himself. Zechariah 14, and the Lord shall become king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. So, back to business. These are your two hearts. They are your good and evil inclinations, and both are necessary in order to create the balance of all things. Uvechol nafshecha. It says with all of your soul, but it says with all. What is a nephesh? A nephesh isn't your soul. Not exactly, it's part of your soul. Nafshecha, it's your life source. What does this mean? Okay, so again, yes, it's translated as soul, but soul is neshama. Nephesh is the lowest form of neshama. Okay, there are 5 forms of the neshama. There's nephesh, which is it's the blood. Okay, the life is in the blood, right? Leviticus 17:11, we'll read it. Then there is the ruach, the spirit. Then there is the neshama, as you know, best translation will be soul. Then there is chaya, which is life, and then there's yechida. Yechida is singularity, and also it's yichud, connection. So we are sort of living in here, okay? At best. Leviticus 17:11, for the nephesh of the flesh is in the blood. Ki nefesh habasar badamhu. So whatever it is your nephesh is that animates you, that gives you life, that's in the blood. That's what it says straight up here. Okay. So firstly, because again, in all the other Bibles, it's a nephesh for soul and for neshama. So you have no idea what's going on over there because they don't know how to translate. you can't really translate it to English. Anyway, so firstly, no blood. No, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep reading the verse. Check this out. For the nephesh of the flesh is in the blood. Okay, so your nephesh, your life source is in the blood, and I have therefore given it to you to be placed upon the altar to atone for your nafshotechem, that's nephesh plural, for it is the blood that atones for the nephesh. Okay? Okay. Ki hadam hu benefesh yechaper. Now, I totally understand how this could be misrepresented, but that's why Hebrew, it's very important. And if you read it properly, this alone could cause your entire doctrines to unravel, or perhaps you might get with the program, which is precisely why it is not read properly. In other words, it's not read properly on purpose so you don't get your story straight. Because the only atonement for your actual soul can only be done by you. The tzaddikim can do a rectification for the damage that has been caused by you. Yes, this is true, but no one has the power, the authority, the ability to remove your sin from you except for God himself. See almost every verse I read to you in this class and thousands more. So we are called to love our God with all of our life source, our nephesh, which is a combination of the guf, the body, and the lowest part of the neshama, of the soul, the lowest part. How do we do this? Great question. Start by doing what's right with your body, and don't do what's wrong with your body. Don't use the body that God gave you to disobey his commands, but use it to perform and fulfill his commands. Don't use your legs to run and do something bad, but use them to run and do something good. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we beat our chests, we say, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin that we have done before you, al ritzat raglaim la'ara, when we use our legs to run and do bad things. This is we got a lot of things to atone for. Ritzat raglaim la'ara. Anyway, don't use your hands, your arms to steal someone else's stuff, but rather use your right arm to put tefillin on your left arm, unless you're left-handed, in which case is the opposite. Which leads us to ubechol meodecha, with all of your means. What does this mean? Okay? You shall love the Lord your God with all of your means. But what is the meodecha? Meodecha comes from the word meod, very much. Okay? Meodecha, you're... So what does this mean? We'll break it down. First and foremost, this is the Shema. I also know what other people call the Shema in other books that other people wrote, and if it changes from this or deviates from this even by a word, which it does, you gotta wonder, what are you reading? So, what is Meodecha? This is none other than your mammon, money. Okay, it's more than just the money, it means all your resources. And this is very specifically, this ties to you using the life source, your nephesh, not to do bad, but to do good. You shall not steal from your fellow and then use that money to do mitzvot or give tzedakah. Okay? Robin Hood was not a good dude. Does it say that thou shalt not steal from the rich? No, it says thou shalt not steal, period. Whoever has money, God gave that money to them. And if you transgress God's command to change what God had decreed, who are you really stealing from? Now you should be afraid. Oh, and you best believe that God's coming for you if you do this. Now or something, well, we'll see that in a second. It's like stealing, think about it. This is how foolish it is when you try and swindle somebody, okay? And I'm talking about people in particular in positions of religious stature, corrupt individuals, okay? It's like stealing gold bars from the king's personal bank with his seal and serial number on each and every bar, and then using that which you just stole from the king which also, by the way, has a GPS tracking device on each bar, and pay tithes right back to the king from his own goal. How do you think that's going to go over with him? You think you're going to be rewarded? You see, this is what God is saying here in the Shema. And unfortunately, I do know some individuals who, how shall we say, are publicly showing everyone all the good that they're doing, while privately they are crushing poor souls. Sadly for them, God sees everything, and so every good deed that has been done not only counts for nothing, but it's worse than that, because that's like spitting in the face of God. It's sheer disrespect. When you're more concerned with what people think, but rather you should concern yourself with what God actually knows. It's like building a wonderful palace when the foundations are completely rusty and decay. The fall is inevitable. Wait for it. Because what actually happens in the heavenly realm is something so terrible, kind of scared me when I read this, that it should shake anyone to their core. Whoever does something like this uses another person to get ahead and to boast about it, supposedly for godly purposes, whether it's money, whether it's time, manipulation, lies, anything, you name it. It's turning an angel of light into an angel of darkness. And that dark angel will be coming for you in this world and in the world to come. So when you're in the heavenly courts thinking of all the good you did, look how much good I did, right? Which was based on the money you stole, the lies you told, the people you've deceived, the lives that you have destroyed, every good deed, every angel that was created to be an angel of light, you yourself have corrupted this angel. And they will all come after you, and they will all accuse you. Or as Rabbi Vali says, Oy lo, oy, you know what oy is, right? Oy lo, shenasa sanegoro kategoro. Woe to him whose defense attorney becomes his prosecutor. Because your defense attorney knows all your dirty little secrets, and now if you turn on him, you're done. People don't seem to understand this. And he continues and says, blessed is he who cleaves properly to these three mentioned attributes. Blessed is he and blessed is his lot. Since he is doing a tikkun, a rectification of his heart, his nephesh, and his mammon. God gave you your inclinations, your life, and all of your belongings. Recognize. And because of this, the sitra achra, the dark side, okay, the other side, the accuser of men will not have permission to attach itself to any of these, since he, the person, places all things under God. If you do this, he can't touch you. And so, all that which a person would love the most, their inclinations, their body, and their belongings, which is all given from God, give it back. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your hearts, and with all your life source, and with all your means. How do we do this? And these words which I have commanded you to this day shall be upon your heart. Here we go, with the heart again. Alev avecha, on your hearts again. This is the biggest struggle. This is where it starts, and it goes on to your nephesh, and then it continues afterwards with meodecha. Starts with here, goes to the action, and then you use your surroundings. It's very smart, this, thing here that God gave us. So we already know what levavcha means, right? Now, what are we to place on it? It says al levavecha, in order to help us be able to properly love God. Because again, love God with all these things. Hadvarim ha'eleh. Again, we'll read the verse. Vehayu hadvarim ha'eleh. Asher anochi matzavecha hayom al levavecha. These things, these words. What words? The 10 Commandments. Last chapters in chapter 5. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came and said that the Ten Commandments are indicated in the passage of the Shema, which is the reference to Vayu Hadvarim Ha'ele, and these words. The words that were, that are, and that will be. As this is the second time we receive the Ten Commandments, this time it's coming from Moses. I mean, last time, 8 of them came from Moses afterwards, but again, it was on Mount Sinai. Now, it's through a slightly different filter. There are variations. And it's very important to note, the first time, Mount Sinai from God, this time from Moses. God gave it through Moses, and now Moses is given to the people like a prophet. Okay? This we have the written law, the oral law, mamash. This is Ze'ir Anpin, and this is Malchut. They are incomplete without each other. Now, Rabbi Shimon says, happy is the portion of he who recites them fully twice a day, since the holy name is properly sanctified by his mouth. Let's read, shall we? The first one, Vishinamtam levanecha, and you shall teach them to your sons. 2, V'dibarta bam, and speak of them. 3, Beshivtecha b'veitecha, when you sit in your house. 4, Uvelechtecha b'derech, and when you walk in the way. 5, Ubeshochbecha, when you lie down. Ubekumecha. 6, and when you rise. 7, Ukshaltam leot al yadecha, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand. 8, Vayu letatofot beinenecha, and they shall be for ornaments between your eyes. There's your tefillin right there. 9, Uchtaftam al mezuzot beitecha, your mezuzah on the door, and you shall inscribe them upon your doorposts in your house. Uvisharecha sha'ar, and upon your gates. We say the Shema twice a day. Now, I didn't write this down in the thing, but you'll notice you'll notice when Moses gives the Ten Commandments, there's a lot of and in Hebrew it's ve. Every single command. The vav represents the vav from the yud ke vav ke, which actually does represent the zeir anpin and its connection to malchut. Okay, so Moses is giving us a tremendous hint over here just by how it's said, and this is a different variation from the book of Exodus to now the book of Deuteronomy. You can research that for yourself. I should have brought more. So, we say the Shema twice a day, in the morning and at night, when we rise and when we lay down. So we are reciting the supernal essence of the Ten Commandments within the Shema. And by doing so, we love God with all our hearts and all our nephesh and all our means? How exactly? Or more importantly, is this even a fair thing to ask? Can someone make you love them, let alone command you to do so? You shall love the Lord your God. I love you. Do you? Because I'm afraid of you. I respect you. But how genuinely can you love somebody? And if we do not truly love God, because who's to say, really? You got to wonder, do we really love God? Are we then transgressing his greatest command every single day? There are a few things that we must consider, while not ignoring the fact that the Ten Commandments are in the same portion as you shall love the Lord your God. So, Rabbi Shimon explained that they are in fact embedded into the Shema, but how does saying the Shema show our love for God? So practically speaking, can you make someone fall in love with you? No, right? You can't. Even if you shower them with gifts and spoil them rotten, okay? Who really ever loved their sugar daddy? Come on. You spoil them rotten. You give them all the love that you have to give. There's no guarantee that they're ever going to love you back. In fact, it most likely does the opposite. Even the genie in Aladdin, right? He said, the only thing I can't do is make someone fall in love with you. I could do anything else in the cosmos, but just not that. You know why? Because love surpasses all things. It is the stuff that we were all made of. You cannot tap into that through a foreign entity. Only this way. Now, I say this to you. If we knew what God did for us and is doing for us. In other words, if we could truly comprehend, okay? Then we would know him. And to know God is to love God, because there is nothing false there. It cuts through everything, right to the truth, and there is nothing else but that. It is the purest, formless form. And the love of God is something that is far beyond our comprehension. I'm going to share some stuff with you soon. So, it is expressed through this world in many different ways, including but not limited to what might seem as punishment. But it actually is correction for the sake of saving your nephesh. Now, the bottom line is this. You absolutely cannot make anyone love you, because love at its core is the purest form, that which it always was meant to be. It's not something that just happens. How is love attained? Okay, we'll go with that. How is love attained? How is it achieved? How is it given? How is it received? Only one way. We know that God created the world out of pure love, right? How do we know this? Now the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their host, and God completed on the seventh day his work. You must work for love. Love is a constant, never-ending effort on behalf of he or she who wishes to impart their love to another. I can tell you this. God's still working for us every moment of every day, all of us, and all of his creation. You're breathing air, aren't you? That's good. God allows it. He doesn't have to, but he chooses to. And what do we give him in return? Since most people don't know God, which is very apparent, and most people who think they know God don't even know God, they're not even aware of this concept. Am I claiming to know God? I'm not claiming to know God. I wish. Believe me. That's what I'm striving for, though. That I can say. But the more you invest of yourself, the more you love your investment or the person you invest in. Because you are putting all your heart or hearts and all your soul or nephesh and all your resources, okay. Everyone has been given a different position in life, different bank accounts, different circumstances, different challenges, different statuses, different places, different ages, different problems, different everything. But the one thing that we all have in common is that which equals the playing field before God. Does God say, well, he's got more money, so I love him more? No. We all got the Torah, and we are all required to follow it, each man according to his means. The Zohar states, ever since the day that Israel were exiled from their country, there is no joy before the Holy One, blessed be he. This is the meaning of verse in Isaiah chapter 50, verse 3. I clothe the heavens with darkness, and I make sackcloth their covering. All this is for the love of the Holy One, blessed be he for them, as it is written in Malachi 1:2. I loved you, said the Lord. Ahavti etchem. Hence, and you shall love the Lord your God. And you shall love means that man should be connected with him with supernal love. See, this is that supernal love. That at every worship, man should serve God and let him perform it with love. Again, whenever I go pray, I don't have the overwhelming, I'm in the spirit now. When that happens, that's great. It doesn't necessarily happen in prayer. It happens, and because of that, I go pray. But I go pray even when I'm tired or hard. And it's hard. It's hard to do it. Sometimes I don't want to, but I gotta. That's the thing. That goes back to Judah, the simple kind of man, the guy that does what's right. It's no big deal if you're super motivated. That's the difference between motivation and discipline. You're not going to always be motivated, but be disciplined. That's how you show your love. That's how you know. Anyway, For there is no worship like the love for the Holy One, blessed be He. Rabbi Abba said, make it last. This is the essence of the Torah. And furthermore, whoever loves the Holy One, blessed be He, is adorned with chesed, mercy, loving kindness on every direction. Where do we get this from? We'll go back from Abraham, who, for the love of his master, had no pity for his own heart, his soul, his money. Where do we see this? His heart, by giving up his son. His soul, mate, giving up his wife. His money, and when they went down to Egypt, his money for sitting outside of the comfort and luxury of all the money, the riches and the big tent mansions that he had in the hot blazing sun in the desert, seeing who he can help. Abraham is our father. Moses is our rabbi. David is our king. What these three incredibly flawed and mortal individuals have done in their lifetime is the reason we are here today. If it's too difficult to learn how to love God on your own, then look at them as examples of what they did and how they expressed their love. Show me the money, right? Show me. Show him. They showed us that true love means to give whatever you want. And no, I did not miswrite or misread that, but I didn't put the emphasis on that which should be, and I did that on purpose. You're thinking, how can I possibly express my love when I give whatever I want? Should it not be to give whatever the other ones? Yeah, in this twisted world that we live in, with the false ideas of what's marketed as love. How do we love God? Give him whatever you want. Did you hear it? Okay, one more time. I'll read it properly though. Give God whatever you want. Abraham wanted his son, gave it to God. Moses wanted to enter the land, gave it to God. David wanted to build a temple, gave it to God. See what I'm saying? That's how you know you love somebody. You give them whatever you want. I want this. It is most precious to me. Take it. That's an expression right there. To know God is to love God. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your hearts and with all your nephesh and with all your means. So how do we get on this love train? By knowing God. How do we do this? By Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Massive hint. First of all, the Shema, the Ten Commandments, the Torah. You follow those, you will fall in love with God in ways that you cannot even begin to imagine. But ahava. What is ahava? Ahava is love, right? The Hebrew word for love is ahava, and the numerical value is 13. Echad, one. The numerical value is 13. Ahava, echad. Come on. One love. Many like to throw out there, God is love. Okay, fine. You're not wrong, but do you even know what you're saying? Say amen. Okay. And therefore, it means nothing more than empty words. Don't you see? Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is love. If you can connect to this, then you just might merit to witness this. And the Lord shall become king over all the earth. On that day, the Lord be love, and his name love. That's the love you want to connect to. Or as the great Rav Marley used to say, one love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right. And speaking of feeling all right, in these darkest times, in this darkest hour, there is still hope. Now, you know, I don't always tend to plug things, but when I do, I make sure they're good for the soul. So, back to this book. This book, I believe, truly believe, this is an opportunity to do just that. And I'll tell you why. Okay, so what do I mean by this? This book was written by the Ramchal. Extremely high individual on the spirit. This is inside information into the exact measurements and functions of the third temple. Okay? This connects us with the upper temple that is going to come down here, third temple. Now, this is the stuff that Ezekiel was given in chapter 43. You, son of man, describe the house to the house of Israel. Describe the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities. Let them measure its plan. Let them measure its plan. And if they are ashamed of all that they have done, let them know the form of the house and its scheme, its exits and its entrances and all its forms and all its laws and all its teachings, and write it down in their sight, so that they keep the whole form thereof and the laws thereof and do them. But this hasn't yet happened. So it's this decoded. Now, why is this so important for us to read? I'll tell you why. Because unfortunately, most people will not be here to witness this. Okay? Most people are not going to survive what's to come. And so by reading about it and studying it and acknowledging it, it's as if you are participating in it. This is why we read about the korbanot, okay, in the morning prayers, and how they are prepared instead of doing it physically. We discussed this already, but again, I'll give you the thing so you don't say crazy rabbis and whatnot. We don't have a temple. God knew we would not have a temple, so how can we fulfill his commands? Which is why he said the following to the prophet Hosea, chapter 14, verse 2. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled in your iniquity. Truth. We have a broken nation, we have no temple, and we barely know God. So what do? Verse 3. Take words with yourselves and return to the Lord. Say, you shall forgive all iniquity and teach us the good way, and let us render for bulls the offering of our lips. Thank you, Prophet Hosea and the Torah, for proving the rabbis right. Look what's going on. So, if by learning about the sacrifices, it is as if we are fulfilling the commands written in the Torah, think about what it might do for our standing and our merit when we learn about the building of the third temple in complete faith, knowing that is absolutely going to come. You want to see the blueprints? And by the way, way sooner than we can all imagine, I might add. Yearning for its coming. And that means that it is currently being built when we learn this by us in the future today. I'm going to place the link below where you can purchase here at a reduced price from what is being sold out there right now. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I'd like to wish everyone a meaningful fast, have an encouraging Thursday, and a comforted Shabbat. See you later. Bye.